Our speaker today is Brian Kilmeade. He's married to his wife. His wife is named Dawn. He has 3 children, Brian, Kristen, and Caitlin, 19, 14, and 12. He's co-host of Fox and Friends television show, and he has a 3-hour daily radio show. I don't know how he fits all that in to his schedule, but it's called Kilmeade and Friends. He has written 3 books, 2 of which were New York Times bestsellers. One of his books is about Thomas Jefferson and the Barbary Pirates. We've got $27 books that we're going to sell to Liberty students for $5, right? But it's only 300, so I don't know how many we'll be able to accommodate. But I told him before we came out here that Thomas Jefferson was sort of a local boy. His summer home is about 3 miles from here at Poplar Forest, and it's fitting that we'd sell this book this morning for Brian. But prior to Fox, he was a stand-up comedian for 10 years. I've been accused of the same thing, Brian. He currently resides in Massapequa, New York, with his family, and he can't stand to hear people chew gum. I don't know why that's on his introduction, but that's what it says. All right. But this is his first time to speak in Convocation at Liberty. Please welcome Brian Kilmeade.
Don't worry, I'm not going to read my speech. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where I've been, where I'm going, and hopefully it'll help you out just a little bit. Excuse me for a second, I'm used to bigger crowds. So only kidding. This is huge, this is the biggest event I ever addressed, and I'm privileged that you guys came out today. I understand the rules at Liberty. You can opt out of one of these things. Thank you very much. A round of applause for you for showing up and not opting out. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, too, is I called in sick today at Fox, so please don't say a word, all right? Show of hands, you promise? I started at Fox News Channel in 1997, extremely lucky to get this job. Before that, I was working at various sports opportunities. They hired me to be the sports guy, but after the Bosnia War, the Iraq War, the election mess, the Afghanistan War, the 9/11 attacks, everything that's happened from today, to be a sports guy at Fox, you wouldn't have been doing much. So I was able to make the transition into the real world, into the news world, into the world in which I'm privileged to be in right now. Now, when I walked in the doors at Fox, nobody knew what it was. We were not on in New York at about 20 million homes. You need about 120 million even to get a rating. So when I walked in, I could tell I walked into what would add up to be Yankee Stadium when they were the Highlanders, when no one knew who they were, but anyone who understood the Bronx in New York and saw this stadium said, this franchise is going to be great, and that's what I walked into. A guy named Roger Ailes is in charge, and he is Bill Parcells. He is Mike Ditka in a business suit. He wants to go out and win every day. He's inspirational. He'll get on you. He'll be sarcastic, but in the end, he wins. The people at Liberty University, a Liberty flame, when you leave these doors, you might not come in first every day, but you got to go out at 110%, and you will win. That is why you guys watch Fox on a regular basis. Special thanks to President Jerry Falwell Jr., and of course, his wife, Becky, and Pastor David, and his lovely wife, Jennifer. What about a round of applause to your upper class, the guys in charge, the people who put this all together. So I had a chance to write 4 books. The Games Do Count, It's How You Play the Game, George Washington's Secret Six, and now Thomas Jefferson, the Tripoli Pirates. And the reason why I think the books were successful, 1, because I'm cute, because I am. Number 2, and I'll talk about the first 2 books later, but number 2 is because fundamentally, we are a very patriotic country. Fundamentally, we know that when we were born, we hit the lotto. We know that America is an exceptional nation. But now these 2 stories gave additional proof. So when you're at a cocktail party, when you're hanging out with your friends at a football game, you want evidence that America's exceptional? I'm going to give it to you. First, George Washington had a spy ring. We win the revolution against the world's #1 superpower. It makes no sense. But until 1930, it was top secret that George Washington, our brilliant, fearless general, had a spy ring planted in New York, in the British headquarters, occupied New York at the time, in British headquarters, that was top secret to 1930. These guys and one woman, 5 guys and 1 woman, weren't these special agents trained for years for this moment. They were longshoremen, a farmer, a bartender, a printer, a grocery store owner, and a socialite. They decided, and they knew, if they were caught, they spied, they died. Want proof? Nathan Hale. Caught, a bad spy, hanged in a matter of 3 days at 66 and 3rd of Manhattan. And the British said, you really think you're going to win this war? Well, these guys doubled down, and for 4 years they run secretive rings together. They put together things that today's CIA has said they are lucky to teach their agents in the middle of a mission after training that these guys learned in the middle of a war with no training. They used invisible ink, they used encryption, they used dead drops. And the reason why the book sold is because we put George Washington up here, and he should be, Thomas Jefferson up here, and he should be. But what if I told you so-called average, everyday Americans, maybe I could say like us, did extraordinary things for a country without a claim and without getting any fame, certainly without money. They lived and died knowing they died for a cause, and they lived for a cause, and we won. Things happened during that war were flat out miraculous, that make no sense, that I went ahead and verified. For example, when we won, we did well in the Battle of Bunker Hill, they came back to New York City, and they were going to wipe us out. And Washington's army tried to square off with the British, and guess what happened? We're almost annihilated at Brooklyn Heights. Does anyone know where Brooklyn is? We're backed up against the river, the East River, looking into Manhattan. What's Washington going to do? He's got to get out. He wants to fight, but he's got to leave. And what does he do? The problem is he's got nowhere to go. So he goes to summon all the ships, civilian ships, all the boats, everyone come. Little by little, he's going to get us out. The problem is, in the middle of the night, the water's too rough. He can't move. Finally, at around 11 o'clock, the water miraculously quieted down. All the ships came in. His guys, dozens and dozens and hundreds and thousands, were getting out while the British slept. The problem was the sun was coming up. When the sun came up, the British would see they were leaving, they were going to attack and wipe us out. The war's over. We're not here today. And out of nowhere, a fog rolled in so thick you could not see 2 feet in front of your face. It allowed the evacuation to continue. All our guys got out, including Washington, who was the last to leave, to fight another day. 4.5 years later, we win the war. So I thought, man, that's just one of these things like Washington chopping down the cherry tree. Until I found a guy named Benjamin Talmadge's biography that he wrote in 1820. And he stood by Washington's side the entire war. And they called it the miracle in the mist. We shouldn't have won that war. We shouldn't have survived for 13 colonies. But for some reason, I believe there's somebody else who wanted to make sure America existed, thrived, and became the dominant superpower we are today. Pro-America over there. Any over here? So the book for 18 weeks was a bestseller. People were talking about it, and they know who Austin Rowe is, Abraham Woodhull is. I felt pretty good about it. But there's another story I want to tell you about. It's Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. So here's this book. Sold about 800,000 copies to people who cared about the country and wanted to learn more. I didn't write it for the historian. I wrote it for the everyday person who's too busy in their life to spend it in the library but cared unbelievably about this country. And I wanted to answer the question, are we an exceptional nation? Of course we are. We wouldn't exist without it. Next comes Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. What if I told you we had our first war against Islam, radical Islam, and it happened in our very existence? Let me flash back. The year is 1785. We're 2 years into our existence. We got freedom from the British, but we also lost their protection. We just wanted to work our way out of war debt. We took out loans to win that war, and the whole world wanted us to fail as a country. So we had to work our way out of it like Americans do. We had great products, we had great ingenuity, and everyone wanted our natural resources. So let's get to work. Well, in 1785, as we're sailing down the Mediterranean, first the Maria, then the Dolphin get captured. Our crew is enslaved. Our ships are taken. The cargo is plundered. What's the problem? Well, anytime we got near Algiers, Algeria, Tunis, Tunisia, Morocco, still Morocco today, and Tripoli, now known as Libya, these Islamic pirates would get our ships. We'd say, hey, listen, we don't have a problem with you. We just want to get our commerce together. Your problem's with Europe. We just want to sell our goods. They said, no, we're going to ransom you off. We're going to keep our guys. You can't pay for ransom. We're a brand new country. We're buried in war debt. It's an emergency. We don't have a constitution. We don't have a president. But we have our first enemy, and it's these 4 Islamic nations. What are we going to do about it? So John Adams goes, knocks on the door of the ambassador to Tripoli. And Adams says, can we talk about this? Starts making some progress. He calls up Jefferson. There was no phones back then, but there was text messaging. So he was able to text him. So Jefferson comes over, and he starts dealing with this ambassador. And he says, this guy's a pretty nice guy. I think he understands that we're not fighting a war against religion. I think he understands that we're just a country looking to get on its own 2 feet. We want to be a partner. Until all of a sudden, he said this. All nations which had not acknowledged the prophet, which is Allah, were sinners, whom it was the right and duty of the faithful to plunder and enslave. Christian sailors were plain and simple, fair game. Really. And the ambassador went on to say, if you want to fight us, he who is slain in warfare was sure to go to paradise. Does that sound familiar? It's the same thing we're dealing with today. So Adams leaves, and he's freaked out. These guys are crazy. We can't rationalize with them. What are we going to do? And Jefferson says, we got to fight them. And Adams says, there's a problem. We don't have a Navy. And Jefferson says, well, let's go get a coalition together. Let's fight them. Adams says, my assessment is we can't fight them unless we want to fight them forever. Man, that was on the money. But was Jefferson right in saying that if we don't fight them, what's the world going to think? And now, Thomas Jefferson, as you guys know, was not a warmonger. This is not General Jefferson. He didn't want to put a militia together to fight in the Revolutionary War. But he says this to Monroe at the time. I am of the opinion that John Paul Jones and a half-dozen frigates could totally destroy their commerce by constantly cruising and cutting them to shreds. He went on to say this, weakness provokes insult and injury. A condition to punish it often prevents it. I think it is in our interest to punish the first insult because insult unpunished is the parent of many others. He's saying essentially, guys, the world is watching. We have to fight. We have to get our guys back. We have to find a way. Adams wins the fight. Congress says, let's pay the money. The insurance gets jacked up. Jefferson says, they're going to jack up the price. We're not going to get our guys back. We do it anyway. We're charged 4 times as much as the rest of the world. Why? Because the last thing the rest of the world wants to see is a representative democracy work. Because they have these things called absolute monarchs, kings and queens. They're not up for election. We do. We want it to work. So Washington takes over. And Washington says, hey, Thomas Jefferson, would you be my Secretary of State? Sounds good. Would you do an assessment on what the heck is going on with these Mediterranean, these Tripoli pirates, these Islamic nations? Sure. He gives a report. How to get our guys back, how to deal with them. He doesn't tell Washington what to do. But he says, listen, George, we got to fight these guys. The world is watching. We're sitting there, we're capitulating to this Islamic extremist ideology, and it's a bad message. Washington says, I'll split the baby. I'll build a Navy, and I'll cut a deal at the same time. By the time the Navy's done, we'll enforce the deal. He does. We cut the deal. And of course, they start blowing up the deal. But we got ourselves a Navy. And soon, we have ourselves a new president, John Adams. And John Adams says, great Navy. Those guys are crazy. I don't want to fight them. I'm going to pay the money. Jefferson says, what kind of message is that? He becomes president after 4 years, as you know. And that's a whole different story, a whole different movie, a whole different HBO miniseries. So he becomes president. And he stops making the payments. And he knows exactly what's going to happen. They're going to declare war. And back then, you know what they did? They chopped down your flagpole. And the flagpole meant you're at war. So Jefferson says, all right, sounds good. I'm going to send my ships over there, and I'm going to just go into the port, and I'm going to strangle off their commerce. The problem is he didn't have congressional approval. The Constitution ink wasn't even dry, and he's worried about violating it. Even though he didn't write it, he thought, it might be a good idea. It might be a good idea not to violate it. But what is our problem? Rules of engagement. What's our problem today, I argue? Rules of engagement. We don't let our Army, Navy, and Marines win wars. We tell them how to fight wars with no experience. We should give them an objective and let them achieve it. So Jefferson gets our ships there. The pirates laugh. They're knifing through, they're harassing, they're doing their normal thing. They go, you guys don't know what the heck you're doing. And you know what? They were right. We had to have the ships communicate with each other. They weren't doing that effectively. So Jefferson goes and gets congressional approval. He gets the right admiral in charge, and they start going at it. They start having some success. Then he gets a guy named Edward Preble, and he gives birth to a whole new generation of great leaders, and they're called Preble's boys. And Preble is awesome. He's catching up to these ships, these awesome ships that only American manufacturers could make, that learned from the British, went to school on the pirate ships, were quick, sleek, and tough to blow up. So we're winning. And then we start bombing the coast, but they're not giving in. We have this one disaster, and the disaster is the USS Philadelphia. The USS Philadelphia is this brilliant ship. It's brand new. It's run by William Bainbridge. He runs aground because we don't know the shores, and the depth finders were all broken, no batteries. And we get captured. 303 of our guys go into Tripoli. They say, we're winning. That's Allah's wish. So now they got our best ship and our best guys. So Stephen Decatur's got a mission. Get the ship back or blow it up. So Decatur goes in with his Navy SEALs of the day. They dress like people of the time. They go inside, they mount the boat, and they blow it up. These are Americans, first-generation Americans. And this is what's said of them. Lord Nelson, the premier admiral of that day from Britain, called it the most bold and daring act of the age. The U.S. Philadelphia wasn't ours, but it wasn't theirs. It was blown up. We did it in the dark of night, and it showed we're in for keeps. But the Tripoli leader, the Basha, was not giving in. What do we do? Now, what did I tell you about Washington? What I liked about it is I told you about a great bartender. I can relate to that. My dad was a bartender. A longshoreman. Most of my friends are in blue-collar jobs. A grocery store owner, we see him every single day, and they were great Americans who got no publicity. Most of us do great things on a daily basis and know people, but we're not Michael Jordan, we're not LeBron James, we're not Joe Montana, we don't get praise, we're not on ESPN or HBO, but we do great things, and we don't do it for the fame or the acclaim. So enter William Eaton. William Eaton was a guy at 15 years old said, I'm going to join the war. Dad, you can't stop me. Then re-enlisted at 20 years old as an officer. Oh, in between, he found his way into Dartmouth. He learned 3 or 4 Indian dialects. He was a brilliant tactician, military tactician, chained under a legend some of you might know, General Mad Anthony. And he couldn't believe that America was not standing up to this threat. So they said, okay, why don't you go ahead and be an ambassador to Tunisia? So that we sent over essentially General Patton, who was little Andrew Dice Clay, and he went over there, and he was breaking some windows. What's wrong with you people? Why are you doing this? Why are you pressing your own people? See, another theme of this book, these Muslim leaders were abusing their own people. They gave them no sense of pride, worth, and self-esteem. Does that sound familiar? So the ambassador came back to Eaton, came back to Jefferson, and he said, we got to fight these guys. Here's how he was described, Eaton. Firm in constitution as in resolution, industrious, indefatigable, determined, and persevering. When in danger, he's in his element and never shows to so good advantage as when leading a charge. He said, Jefferson, I got an idea for you. Give me a handful of Marines, give me some money and some guns. I'll stage a land war, and I'll take it. Jefferson says, I think you've been drinking. Leave me alone. 3.5 years into the war, with us doing well but not winning, because like the air war of today, only a ground war, sadly, will give you the results that you need. Jefferson said, wow, I'm losing. I got to buy Louisiana. I'm losing public opinion. William Eaton, we never had this conversation. Go see Madison. you're going to get your guns. You're going to get your money. Make it happen. If you get caught, you never talk to me. So he lands in Egypt with a handful of Marines. Presley O'Bannon is one of them. They get some Greeks. They get some Arabs. They get some Muslims. They look at they find the deposed leader of Tripoli. They say, I'm going to put you back in power. And they get some Italians. Why? The sense of humor and the ability to cook. I'm half Italian, I could say that. You don't want the Irish cooking. We make one thing, bread, badly. I'm Irish too, I can say that. 500 miles. They go through the desert using the stars. In the middle of this, there's mutinies. The mercenaries in the middle said, okay, if you don't double my price, I quit. So we had to get together Arabs, Christians, Muslims, any other religion, and combine them together, form an army, and take the standing Tripoli army. You think it's possible? It's possible if you're William Eaton. You don't know William Eaton. I ask you this, if I could ask you to Google anybody at the end of this speech, if it's not Stephen Decatur, I want it to be William Eaton, because he's an extraordinary guy that lived and died without any acclaim. He said this, if the Congress does not consent that the government shall send a force into the Mediterranean to check the insolence of these scoundrels and to render the United States respectable, I hope they will resolve at their next session to wrest the quiver and arrows from the left talon of the American eagle and substitute a fiddle and bow or a cigar in lieu. What he's trying to say is, grow a backbone, take them on, take some risks. We're Americans. There was a sense in this country in 1805 that we were losing the spirit of '76. Do you believe that? So those who feel bad about the effect of our country today and think we're losing our axis, don't worry about it. We were always worried about it, and we always came out stronger. So this is what he said in the middle of the march. We find it almost impossible to inspire these wild bigots with confidence in us or to persuade them. Being Christians, we can be otherwise than enemies to Muslims, which was Muslims back then. But you know what he did do? He won them all over. He made them into a fighting force. So good were his maps that Rommel used them in World War II for an ugly reason, but a brilliant general because Eaton did such a great job mapping out the unmappable in the middle of the desert. So outnumbered 3-1, led by Marines, Presley O'Bannon, we come on to Derna, outside Tripoli. What do you think he did? He charged. And what do you think happened? 2.5 hours. America was engaged in their first international ground war. And in 2.5 hours, we took the entire city. We put up the American flag. We took Derna. We're on the doorstep of Tripoli. Not England, not Spain, not France, not Sweden, not Norway, Prussia, whatever then. Nobody had the guts to do what America was doing, led by Decatur, led by Eaton. And most of you don't know who Preble's boys were, and I didn't either. I write this book not as somebody smarter than you, but someone in awe of our country, unbelievably curious about our history, and wonder why everyone tries to sneak in to get here. Everyone wants to be here, and everyone wants to be us. What is it about us? Are we cheering for the home team, or are we on the best team? Ladies and gentlemen, the more you read, the more you study, the more you learn, we are on the best team. Nobody has this history. We do screw up, though. Tobias Lear had a goal, too. Tobias Lear wanted to be a hero. He was Washington's aide, and he was an aide to Jefferson. They told Tobias Lear, go on a ship, cut a deal. They didn't want to cut a deal. But when you put William Eaton on the doorstep of Tripoli, these spineless leaders who oppressed their people, who were dying for an opportunity to be free, who were free for 3 weeks under William Eaton, he said, I'm not here to oppress you. Do your thing. Really? What is our thing? All we used to do is live in fear of our leaders. No. Hamett's your new guy. I'm in charge. We're not going to turn our guns on you. Every time they tried to take Derna back, by the end, the Americans didn't have to fight. The people of Derna were fighting. We're all set to march to Tripoli. But Tobias Lear cuts a deal. He gets our guys back, writes a check for $15,000. Goes over to William Eaton, war's over, come with me. Eaton's like, what? War's over, come with me. We're gonna take Tripoli. I promise these people they're gonna get some freedom. I promise Hamid, he's gonna get his idiot brother out of power, and he's gonna be in charge. Yeah, sorry about that. We never thought you'd do this good. We just wanted to scare him. We didn't know you'd conquer. You got one day to get in the boat. Hauls Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, the battle hymn of the Marine hymn. You understand it? This is where it's from. But we didn't finish the job. We got in the boat, Eaton went in the boat, came back. Tobias Lee originally was hailed as a hero. The real story came out. It took Madison. They took advantage of us during 1812. They started taking our guys again. Madison said to Stephen Decatur, to William Bainbridge, stay in your outfits. I'm sending you to Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, and Tripoli. Get our guys back and let them know they can never do this again. Not only do we get our guys back, we had to wait to 1815. We make them pay us for our inconvenience. And the world gets a message. America is a superpower who does things not to conquer, who does things to give other people an opportunity for freedom, not to oppress. We still do that today. By the way, do we have Iraq's oil? Do we have any of the natural resources of Afghanistan? Did we strip Germany and Japan? No, we built them up. And in the modern day altercations, we give them an opportunity to succeed, but we can't guarantee it. So in case you think Brian Kilmeade is just patriotic because he's from Fox and he loves America, guilty as charged, here's what Pope Pius VII said, which blows me away. One name Pius would have been enough, but 7 says this of Decatur: the American commanders, with a small force and a short space of time, has done more for the cause of Christianity than the most powerful nations of Christendom have done for ages. People of liberty, the Liberty Flames, I think you know this, but let me, for those who are in doubt, we were created in an unthinkable way. We existed and thrived in an unthinkable fashion. We're the only country out there on a regular basis who, if we don't achieve it, at least have the right objective of doing things for peace and democracy. We don't force it. We give people an opportunity to experience it. We don't tell them they're wrong, but when people are oppressed, we stand up and do it. We are witnessing a time in which we are pulling back and moving out. America, don't worry about it. You guys are on your own. The Middle East, I'm sorry for meddling. In Europe, you kind of don't worry about Russia. We're not going to get in your way. How's that working out? Sadly, our planet needs us, called Earth. Without us, they're all screwed. We'd be fine. But we know we hit lotto, and we want to give back. Anybody here at Liberty understands it's more about everybody else than it is about us, and that's really why we exist today. Do we still have some of the same problems? What are we learning in Libya? Do a halfway job, have a lot of trouble. What are we learning when it comes to in Iraq? Rules of engagement, not finishing the job leads to more trouble. What are we learning in Eastern Europe? If America doesn't stand up for its friends, they're going to get bulldozed. If we don't stand up for our friends, back comes the Eastern Bloc, and who knows, back comes even the Soviet Union. It's not my opinion. We're watching it unfold. 7 years ago, I couldn't have told you that. Now we're watching it. You make the call. This is William Eaton's book. He lived and died. He never got over the fact he couldn't finish the job. I got it on eBay. It was written in 1823. He gave his biography to his biographer. It wasn't published till after his death. I got it for $109 on eBay. If you read about him, you understand this should be $109,000 on eBay. If you think I'm exaggerating, blowing things out of proportion, being too red, white, and blue, read the actual documents. Monticello's not too far away. William Eaton's book's obtainable. You might be able to get one of the few copies left. It's an extraordinary story of so-called average everyday Americans doing extraordinary things because that's what we do. And lastly, this. The games do count. I understand. How many are students here? All of you? How many are sure they know what they're going to do when they get out? How many worry about not being successful? Welcome to the human race. I wrote this book, The Games Do Count. It's how you play the game. Not for athletes, but for people like me. Average athletes that wanted to be great and didn't, and wondered, did I waste my time? But what does sports represent? A try at being the best you can. Even the best, Michael Jordan, got to do something else at 33, 34 years old. But what do? They put themselves out there. They try to be great. If you ride the bench and you gave it your all, did you learn anything? The answer, believe it or not, I didn't think so at 19, 20, 21, and 22. But at 32, 35, 40, 45, I knew it for sure. And I'll give you an example. I interviewed 73 people for the Games Do Count. If you were a pro, you didn't make my list. If you were successful in the second part of your life, not rich, but successful in the second part of your life, something you did after sports, crediting sports, you're on my list. It's how you play the game. Was 91 interviews, did them all personally, taped them all, of people that learned, had a moment in sports that shaped their life. Not that got them $1 million, but were unbelievable beneficial in giving them morals, work ethic, and values. I'll give you 3 examples. Tony Danza. Tony Danza wanted to be a world champion boxer, trained 3 times a day. The problem was he started to lose. And when you lose, do you get a shot at the title? No. So he's fighting, trying to hold on to that dream. Thinking, what am I wasting my time for? One day he's at Gleason's gym. The casting director comes in and says, we need a boxer for a TV series. It's called Augie, back in the 1970s, it was this great successful series, Chico and the Man. They wanted to do it off a Brooklyn boxer. He's like, I'm not an actor. He goes, well, let me go watch you fight. So he goes to fight. And he goes, good, I'm gonna knock this guy out, I'm gonna show him what I can do, but I'm not gonna act. So he fights the Connecticut champion. I don't know many tough Connecticut champions, but he thought he's gonna run right through this guy. 30 seconds into the fight, he gets knocked down. In the audience are the producers of this TV series. He gets up, gets knocked down again, but this time he can't really understand where he is. He holds on, he stays away. All of a sudden his senses start coming back. With 15 seconds left in the round, and I have the punch in the book, he hauls off, sets his feet, right hand, knocks the guy out. These non-athletes who were producing this boxing series were in the audience. They were so moved, they were going crazy, they couldn't believe their guy did it. It wasn't the magnitude of the fight, he wasn't gonna become champion, but guess what happened? Augie didn't work, but this other series called Taxi worked, about a boxer taxi driver they created after watching him box. He wanted to be a great champion. He worked hard to be a great champion. He did not have the tools to be a great champion. But now, after 2 unbelievably successful series, Who's the Boss? He's got a Broadway show, had his own talk show. Because he tried and gave everything in boxing, he failed, technically, but won later. Anyone know a guy named Jim Caviezel? Jim Caviezel's an actor in The Thread Red Line. He also played a part called Jesus in The Last Temptation of Christ. So he wanted to be a great basketball player. But his brother was better. As a sophomore, his brother was being recruited all over the place. Jim worked twice as hard, put more time in, dreamed about it, it never happened. So he's packed up, didn't get any scholarship offer. His sophomore brother had 111. Humiliating, said, I'm gonna go to Hollywood and try to act. He walked in there, the same attitude of trying too hard, trying to overproduce, was not getting any auditions. Nothing was working for him. He thinks, am I gonna fail again? He took a deep breath and he stopped. He goes, what was I doing wrong in basketball? I wanted it almost too much. What was I not doing? Working on my weaknesses. Have I shown discipline off the stage? Not really. So I'm gonna stop going out. I'm gonna start relaxing. I'm gonna start imaging. He goes and auditions for a part called The Thin Red Line. He gets it. Then he gets Frequency. And he's on a roll. But he gets one other call from Mel Gibson. And Mel Gibson says, Jim, you're the perfect guy to play Jesus. Really? You want me to play Jesus? All right, I'll give it a shot. In doing the part, he separates his shoulder. In doing the part, he gets hit by lightning. But the problem is, he hasn't shot the crucifix scene yet. And they're running out of time. You know how big a movie is? They're paying thousands of people, thousands of dollars, from the smallest part to the biggest part. And if his separated shoulder and his hit by lightning is gonna hold up everything, it might destroy the movie. So essentially, they do the cross scene. And he's in so much pain, he has his fists like this. And they go, Jim, you got to open up your hands. He opens up his hands. And the only thing that got him through it, he said, it wasn't nearly as hard as John Wooden's basketball camp when they made her run the gases at the end when I thought I had nothing left. I tapped into my basketball background, what I put myself through physically, and I became part of, if not the most important part, of the most successful movie ever, The Last Temptation of Christ. And that's Jim Caviezel's story. How does sports help him? Did he fail? Yeah. Might you not get the computer science job you want, but might you end up running a whole computer division? And lastly, I bring it to The Rock, because we have the same build. He was a nobody, getting into trouble until these coaches took him in. And they said, I will not, I'm going to go, he works for the PBA. And they go, listen, you've been nothing but trouble. We're going to run you in, send you to juvenile hall unless you join the football team. It's like, I'm terrible at football. He goes, we'll teach you. So for 2 years, they work with him. They saw an interest in him. They saw the potential we all see that he has now. They called him the University of Miami. They said, you got to check out this behemoth defensive lineman. They check him out, full ride. Russell Maryland, Ray Lewis, all these great players. He goes to the premier college. He shows up, and he knows what his goal is going to be. He's going to be a pro. For 4 years he played. He never starred. The last year he had a good final 6 games. Thought for sure everybody gets drafted at Miami. Michael Irving to Jim Kelly. Doesn't get drafted. All his friends sign multi-million-dollar deals. He doesn't get anything. He gets drafted to the CFL, the Canadian Football League. It's like, how humiliating. It gets worse. What is worse than getting drafted to the CFL? Getting cut in the first 2 days in the CFL. He's living in the basement of his parents' house with his fiance, wondering what his life gone wrong. His goal was to be a football player, and he failed. Fought out, maybe he wasn't as athletic as all these other guys. That's probably the case. Maybe he didn't try as hard, he hasn't figured it out. But he realized, I can't quit. He called up his uncle, who was doing some wrestling. They said, listen, I can get you some jobs in some small stadiums for $75 a night. He goes, anything to do with athletics. The first time he did it, he was hooked. Next thing you know, he's the best heel in the world, which is the bad guy. Then he's the best guy in the world. Next thing you know, he is starring in football movies as the quarterback while all his friends have played and retired. Did he fail at football? Technically, yes. Did he succeed in life? I would say like nobody else on the planet. Did Jim Caviezel fail at basketball? Technically, yes. But did it benefit him later? Yes. Same thing with Banta, Tony Danza, who became Banta in boxing. So I urge this. Don't be afraid to fail. And don't be surprised, as upsetting and it is, and dispiriting as it is, it helps you more than anything else in your life. There is glory in trying, and oftentimes your glory is not denied, it is delayed. For me, I wanted to be great in soccer. Currently, I'm having success. It's not guaranteed tomorrow. I'm extremely lucky. But if I started and starred, I would not be nearly as hungry as I am today. And I challenge you. If you are challenged, if you're sitting on the bench in your sport, in your club, in the theater, when you go to your classes, whatever major you're in, don't worry about it. Learn from it. And say, I'm going to be stronger because of it, and I'm built to succeed eventually, unless you quit. And nobody at Liberty quits. Am I right? I can't thank you enough for my time. I've had a chance to speak about this book for 3 months. It has sold 600,000 copies. But when I saw this on my calendar for April, this is what I've been pointing to. It's been a thrill being here. I am honored you didn't take this as your day to miss. I'm honored you came out here today. And I really salute you in choosing Liberty and to be a Liberty Flame. It'll pay off forever. And I know on the behalf of Shannon Bream, who's awesome, works at Fox, I thank you so much for your time today. And for the book, I'll be signing them in the back. They're all signed, but if you want them personalized, I'll do it. We'll take a picture in the back. Honored to be here. Thanks so much for your time. Watch and listen on Fox.
Come on, put your hands together.